shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer and I am your co-host. Today our guest is Tero from Four Sigmatic. Tero is the founder of Four Sigmatic, is on a mission to make medicinal mushrooms, some of the world's most researched superfoods, more accessible to everyone. Born in Finland to an agronomist father and nursing teaching mother, Tero grew up on a farm with his family has owned since 1619. There he foraged for mushrooms and other wild foods while learning about the natural food space at an early age. Following his early education on the farm, Tero later completed a degree in chemistry and a certificate in plant-based nutrition from Cornell University. In 2006, he won a Finnish Innovation Award for discovering that the sought-after Japanese culinary matsutake mushroom also grows in Finland. Tero is a reputable source on superfoods and expert on natural health and has been featured a speaker at Summit Series, Wanderlust and WME-IMG. Tero and Four Sigmatic have been featured in prominent media outlets including Vogue, Time, Forbes, W Magazine, Harper, Bazaar, BuzzFeed, Appétit, Goop, Well+Good, MindBodyGreen, and many others. Tero, it's our pleasure to have you on our podcast today. Being a novice local mushroom forager myself, I'm personally thrilled to have you on today. I heard your podcast on Pedram Shojai's show, and I just knew I had to have you on.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, always stoked to talk about mushrooms and more.
Yeah, I'm sure. So let's just, first question first. Tero, how did you get started? A little backstory, your history, interest in mushrooms, and Four Sigmatic.
Yeah, so I grew up in Finland at our family farm, and it's a famous area for organic farming and herbalism. And that was part of my world. And I went to an environmental kind of a foraging school that my great-granddad helped to found. It's for Americans, I guess it's the closest example of that is like Waldorf meets and more like a Steiner school.
Yes.
But anyway, we're building nests for owls and foraging and the ecosystem in Finland or in Scandinavia is close to the one of Maine or upstate New York or Vermont or something like that. So we got a lot of mushrooms and berries, and it was just the easiest forage, I guess. And that was my start to that. And yeah, I guess my whole life I've been working with farming, agriculture, health, nutrition, and yeah, for some reason mushroom chose me, I guess. Sounds woo, but like it's always been drawing my attention and increasingly over the last 5 years. So it's really taken pretty much all my time.
That's fantastic. Now let's give our audience a little primer. I remember I was sitting in a New Jersey mycological seminar, and they were talking about, the mushroom you see is actually the fruiting body. And I was like, well, I always thought that was the main part of the mushroom, but that's actually kind of like the apple of the tree. So how about a little primer on the anatomical parts of a mushroom?
Yeah, totally. So that's a great one. I guess there's one key takeaway for all the listeners is that fungi are a kingdom. And when something is a kingdom, it's so complex that there's things that can kill you and things that can heal you, but there's also multiple elements of them. So it's a complex world, so to say. And that's a common misconception is that you go to a grocery store, you see the forest, and you see this traditional mushroom shape, and you think, oh, that's everything there is, but it's only like a fraction of everything there is. So about 25% of Earth biomass is made out of fungal matter, and this fungal matter is predominantly mycelium or hyphae, and so think of it like the root system of the mushrooms. And it's underground. It's underground anywhere you go. So even if you would live in Antarctica or Sahara Desert, it would grow there. So they're extremophiles. And all plants and living beings really require the mycelium to be there. So it's amazing for our environment. And it lives in symbiotic relationship with these plants. And then it collects all of its life force, all of its energy from this large mass of area, and it pops up these fruiting bodies, which, like you said, it's a great anecdote that it's like the apple from the apple tree. You don't try to eat the bark, you eat the apple. And this is like the part of it's the fruiting body. And then a third part that people might want to know is called a spore, which is like the seed. So with the same apple anecdote, it would be the seed inside the apple. So the part that would help create new life. So spores, they fly in the air, and they're going to be on your pillow when you sleep, and you're going to breathe them wherever you are. They will be in the air flying around. So they're not all mushrooms or fungi are even visible. But three parts: rooting system called the mycelium, and then the actual fruit called the fruiting body. That's the one you would want to eat. And then there's the spores, which are like the seeds. So that's layman terms.
Right. Now, is there any circumstances where you would eat the spores of the mycelium?
So mycelium it's commonly available in dietary supplements in the United States. It's grown in laboratories, so it is very much commonly available. It's like it doesn't have a lot of these so far known active ingredients, such as these beta-glucans. There's only 2 to 3% of them are beta-glucans, where in the fruiting body there's like up to 40%. So they're not as condensed, but there might be health beneficial compounds in them that we've yet to discover. But what we know is that they're less potent, and as there's not really like indigenous people or people who forage can't really forage mycelium, so you can't really get it in the wild, so it's very much a new thing. But we might, in 20, 30 years, we might figure out some beneficial parts in them. But the short answer is probably not. And then for the spores, spores are, especially in these polypores, so these mushrooms that grow on trees, such as reishi mushroom, the spores are actually pretty good, and they have a lot of these fat-soluble terpenes. But again, for a normal person, you just stick to the fruiting body, and that will take you a long, long way.
Now, next question is difference between a medicinal mushroom and a regular button or portobello mushroom.
Yeah, so what's the difference between medicinal mushrooms and your normal button or cremini mushroom is that, like I said in the beginning, mushrooms are a kingdom, so there's many kinds of mushrooms. And we often only think that there's these button mushrooms and maybe psychedelics, and that's the only thing we think that there is. But there's a lot more. So in brief, there's estimated, nobody really knows, but top experts in the International Mycology Association estimate that there's 1.5 million different types of fungi. So 1.5 million different types of fungi on Earth. And this would mean that there's 6 times more different kinds of fungi than there's different kinds of plants. So the fungal kingdom would be 6 times more diverse. And in this group, there is few that would interest probably, so there's all kinds of groupings of these mushrooms on how they form and all that stuff. But for an average person, it's good to know that there's culinary mushrooms and then there's medicinal mushrooms. So culinary mushrooms are the ones you generally see in the stores, and they're a great source for possibly a plant-based protein, so a non-animal-based protein source. They have B vitamins, iron, they have some minerals. So I would just say consider them as like an alternative to vegetables, which is good to have in small dosages. Now, some people are allergic to them, and some people get digestive distress from them, sometimes in the molds found in these mushrooms. But they definitely have, if you can eat them, they're a great way to diversify your diet. And in these medicinal mushrooms, there's only about 300 to 400 of them in the world, and they have significant amounts of these metabolites, and about estimated 40% of all pharmaceuticals utilize fungi. So they're extremely well studied, and so these are sometimes called as medicinal mushrooms. An interesting way to differentiate them from the culinary mushrooms is that not always, but commonly, culinary mushrooms grow on the ground, and medicinal mushrooms grow on trees. And actually, funny enough, you can't really find toxic tree mushrooms. So we talked before we started the show, as you were saying, you found something that looks like a reishi, but you were not sure. And it's true, there's a couple of varieties that look somewhat similar to a reishi to a beginner's eye, but all of them are totally safe. And even the ones that are not reishi or Chanoderma chuka, in this case, in the East Coast, it still has some medicinal properties. So in a way, you're pretty safe to experiment, whereas with the ground mushrooms, there's quite a lot of toxic ones.
Yeah, every year you hear of somebody just randomly picking a mushroom they think is edible, ends up being a death angel, and they're dead in like a few hours. So
yeah, and also from all the toxic mushrooms, there's only a handful that would grow in North America and more commonly. So just by learning the 3 to 5 poisonous ground mushrooms, you're probably gonna be on the safe side. But again, there is mycological associations in pretty much every major city in the United States, and they're more than happy to take you on a foray. And I would definitely touch base with them if the foraging and the culinary world is of your interest. I would highly recommend touching base with your local community and meeting the people there who know that region, because regions vary a little bit. So I can't go foraging in many regions of the world because I don't know the local ecosystem that well.
Right. Like I told you, I live in New Jersey, and I know there's a New Jersey mycological, group or society. So, and I'm sure, like you said, there is in every state and in many cities and towns as well.
Yeah, they're those mycophiliacs. They're really into it, and they're widespread, just like mushrooms. They're all over. So you can definitely find them. It's not a difficult task, and those communities are small, but they're very passionate. So I would imagine that you will have no problem finding somebody to help you out.
All right, now Four Sigmatic is your company. Let me take a step back. The most sought after medicinal mushrooms, what are they and what are they most well known for?
So again, when you start to learn something new, and like for a lot of listeners, probably mushrooms are somewhat new. When they heard the show, it's like, mushrooms? We're talking about mushrooms. So it's easy to get confused because you start to think like, I have to learn everything, but you really don't. Like, you can really focus on you don't even have to learn the top 10 mushrooms. You can just learn the top 4 or something like that. Now, the ones that I would recommend is, when in doubt, start with reishi mushroom. So Reishi. It's a Japanese name. There's also the Latin name is Canoderma lucidum. So that's probably the one you would start. Other ones that might be interesting is Chaga, Chaga, lion's mane, spelled like I said, lion's mane, and cordyceps, Cordyceps. Those might be one of interest. Other ones would be shiitake, maitake, turkey tail. So that's like a few of the ones that you want to probably start your research on. And just like greens, it's good to mix and match them. And so instead of only eating nettle, only eating dandelion, only eating kale, it's good to have a little bit of many different kinds of dark leafy greens. It's good to have many kinds of medicinal mushrooms, but they're all safe. They're non-toxic. They're generally regarded as safe. Kids can have them. Older people can have them. So they're great for that. So hopefully that explains it.
Yeah. So some of the benefits of those 4 mushrooms?
So the funny part is that what I think are some of the key benefits are the ones that are just now being researched on, and some of them ones that they're known for. It's just purely out of funding reasons. Like I said, they're extremely well studied, but the research when it comes to topics of that illnesses and issues that affect a lot of people. So diabetes, there's a lot of cancer research on mushrooms. There's a lot of autoimmune research on mushrooms. So I would say immunological things, so the antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory. What I think are the most interesting benefits is more like healing your gut, balancing the blood sugar. So it's like an easy way of naturally weight loss. But what I would say is that chaga is for inflammation, rishi's stress reduction, lion's mane is for the brain and nervous system, and cordyceps is for sports. So that's, again, a very broad stroke of a complex topic. But if you want an upper, take a cordyceps. If you want a calming one, take reishi. If you're traveling or you're about to get sick, take chaga. And if you need to get brain work done, take lion's mane.
I got hit with a wicked stomach virus last night. I almost had to cancel on you. So I guess I should up my chaga, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So your company is Four Sigmatic. You make a ton of products. I've tried 3 of them so far. How about running through a little bit of what kind of products you make, your level of quality? You mentioned already that it's safe for kids. Why don't you run through some of those a little bit?
Yeah, so Four Sigmatic is a key way of saying that we only represent 50 of the world's most researched foods. And surprisingly, give or take few, it's like about 10 of those 50 are mushrooms. So our point is just to help popularize the consumption of these ancient quote-unquote superfoods that are just gone out of style, and help promote them. And And in order to get people to take mushrooms, obviously there's a level of education we try to give to people. So we have a free mushroom academy online, and you can learn. It's like an e-learning course on mushrooms. But the even more important part is to make it more accessible for people, because most of these mushrooms, as mentioned, grow on trees, and their category is inedible mushrooms, so you can't eat them. So you have to first cook them, like you would do like bone broth or something. So you put them on a slow cooker for, even several days, but let's say 12 to 24 hours. And then, in order to get the other benefits, the fat soluble compounds, you have to tincture them. And in home, that might take several weeks to do that as well. So anything from 4 to 8 weeks even, if you do it at home. So we pre-done that for people. So this is called a dual extraction. What you need to know is that all the parts of the mushroom are bioavailable. And they come in these easy-to-use packets, so you can travel with them. It's powder, it dissolves in water. And then the other part is that we try to make the flavor, which otherwise is very bitter, and most Americans don't like bitters. We try to make it easier for people by making a mushroom coffee, a mushroom hot cocoa. So cacao or chocolate and coffee are bitters that people like, but those are some of the only bitters that people like. So making a healthier hot chocolate or healthier coffee experience by the use of mushrooms in these easy-to-use pouches and packets. And you can go to foursigmatic.com and or anywhere actually, you can go and see reviews of third-party people giving on the products, and otherwise, yeah, it's never grown in laboratories, so we use the fruiting bodies and not the mycelium. We dual extract them, and we try to make it easy to use for people, and the flavor tastes good. But obviously, I'll let you guys be the judge of that.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I can't find a reishi, chop it up, dehydrate it, grind it up, and then it's good to go. There's actually more of a process than that.
Yeah, I mean, the only you're going to get is probably stomach aches, and you'll get, in small amounts, you'll get some fiber, but there's a compound. So, okay, let's take a step back. Mushrooms and humans, or fungi and humans, were actually part of the same ancestry. So we were part of the same super kingdom before, and we still share up to 50% of the same DNA with mushrooms. And there's a lot of similarities. For example, mushrooms breathe oxygen and expel CO2 like we do. They can't produce their own food. They have to get external food sources. And they also have this compound called chitin that we see in the animal kingdom, for example, in the shell of the lobster, for example. And we cannot absorb this chitin. So we have to kind of cook through it. So eating raw mushrooms, actually all kinds of raw mushrooms, you're not really going to get the benefits. So that's why even in the culinary world, often they're cooked in butter or put in a soup with lipids, and that the heat combined with the fats help make it sometimes even less toxic, but definitely more yummy and more nutritious. So even if you prepare your shiitake at home, I would recommend sauteing or cooking them in a soup or something and not eating them raw.
Okay. That was actually one of my questions, dual extract. So dual extract is actually cooking or boiling them and then distilling them? Is that what dual extract means?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways to get the second part. It can be alcohol, enzymes, even use of fats, like mentioned, but generally means that their mushrooms have two kinds of key health benefits. Water soluble, that are good for your immune system, that we mentioned in the case of where a lot of the research is. And this is you get by cooking them. And then you have fat-soluble compounds that are more, quote-unquote, adaptogenic, so things that maybe affect our hormonal system a little bit more, our glands, and those require a fat, an enzyme, or an alcohol. So most commonly, almost always, it's an alcohol. So doing both processes and combining the end result is called a dual extract or a double extract.
Well, I can attest to the powdered chaga, the reishi hot cocoa, I think reishi cordyceps maybe, and the mushroom coffee. All three of those so far have been delicious. I've been enjoying them greatly and easy to use and then tasty, like you said. So.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, some people like sweeter, some people like earthier. We try to offer all those options. So, and we have stronger mushroom products and then more like entry-level mushroom products. And so we try to offer different options where you are ever. But I would say that when in doubt, the mushroom coffee is probably a great place to start, or the Rishi hot cocoa. So those two are probably like the easiest places for anybody to get into the world of mushrooms.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about your packaging is it's kind of funny and it's kind of, kinky, and but then it's got how to use it, what it's, is it strong, is it not too strong, what you can mix it with. So I mean, just a ton of information is on your packaging too. So if your packaging was your idea, big thumbs up too, because your packaging is awesome.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, our community calls us the Finnish Fungi, so I guess that's pretty accurate. But yeah, I mean, we don't take things that seriously, so sometimes we make bad jokes a lot. But anyway,
you mentioned before your Mushroom Academy. I ran through that the other day, like in a half a day. That was really great too. That's a great resource for sure.
cool. Yeah, I mean, it's free, and there's like 12 videos right now. We're building a new version out of it. But anyway, it's like, I think it's pretty useful. Hopefully, even if you're a more advanced mushroom lover, hopefully you'll learn something new. But it's definitely designed for people who want the kind of the spark notes of fungi.
Yep. Now, any quick tips for people who are interested in beginning to forage, whether they're more of the culinary mushrooms like the chanterelles and the ceps, or the porcinis, or even the puffballs, and then a little bit more about the medicinal mushrooms?
Yeah, I would give three advice, or actually one of them I already given. So the one that, wherever you are, you should go with somebody who's like a local and has been doing it. So finding your local mycological association or community usually helps. Then the second part is that in a way, I kind of alluded to it also before, is like, don't try to be a perfectionist. I know literally the world's best mushroom experts, and they don't know every mushroom. They often joke that there's these little brown mushrooms, which is just a common term for all the mushrooms they don't know. So nobody will know all these mushrooms for sure. It's just a fact. So just learn a few. Find a mushroom that you would probably ideally like in the flavor profile. So you bought in a store and you like chanterelles or whatever your community will offer, and then learn with that. Learn like 2, 3 of the more common ones and go look for those. And then third part is just go into the forest. Like, instead of thinking like, oh, like it's a job or have to get an X amount, just go walk. And sometimes you find stuff and you can collect it, but don't eat it, and bring it back home, research on it, figure out what it is. But yeah, just like being in the woods and being in nature is usually the best way to start. And even if you don't come back home with a huge score of morels, you're probably going to find something, or at least you had a great time, walking around, getting some fresh air. So those are my 3 tips.
Beautiful. Now you mentioned this a little bit. You can get your products at Four Sigmatic. You can also get them on Thrive and other third party. Any other main places that it's sold, or they're sold?
I mean, I guess Amazon Prime is a big thing for a lot of people. So you get it on Amazon Prime, and depending on where you live, you can get it at natural product stores like Whole Foods and Sprouts and other ones like that. So kind of depends on the region. We're still a small employee-owned company, and we're kind of expanding to retail step by step because it's like very time-consuming and a little bit expensive. But yeah, I guess Thrive Market, Amazon, our website, you can get anywhere, and then and check out, go ask your local Whole Foods or a similar store for the Four Sigmatic mushroom product.
Now, is there enough Chaga, wild-crafted Chaga, to go around?
Yeah, absolutely there is. So that's actually one of the common myths, is that we're going to run out of chaga, without going into the deeper that they live in a symbiotic relationship, even parasitic relationship. So chaga will attack a tree that is probably already going to die, and and people and it grows in the northern hemisphere. So it's like Russia, Canada, Finland, Sweden, Norway, parts of the U.S. But literally, like the biggest forest in the world, taiga, which is easily predominantly a chaga-friendly zone, so TAIGA, that forest is the same size of all of the United States. So there's one forest that chaga predominantly grows that is the same size of all of the United States. And you don't need a big piece to make enough mushrooms. If you dual extract it and use all the parts of the mushroom, a small piece will make a lot of products. And also, if you forage it that you don't remove it fully, but just a piece of it, it will regrow. So just gotta be conscious of how you do it, and you're good to go. But I mean, obviously, if you go and pick up all the chagas from the forest, you tear them fully, you don't dry them correctly, you don't use them correctly, you just steep them for 10 minutes, throw them away. That's really wasteful, but I could say the same thing about every other plant and animal product in the world, that if you don't utilize it fully, it's very wasteful. So, but yeah, chaga is no different.
Agreed. Now, we truly appreciate your time today. Any last words for us?
No, not really, except like just give mushrooms a chance. I mean, they suffer from this biological racism the same way as that a lot of people have been scared of bacteria, and now we know that like bacteria is actually pretty good for you. It's good bacteria and bad bacteria. Same goes for fungi. So just find a way that you will like it. If you like the flavor of mushrooms, start there. If you don't like the umami, mushroomy flavors, then try the mushroom coffee, because usually it doesn't taste anything like mushrooms. Just find a way where you can be, and even if you don't want to consume mushrooms for reasons X, Y, Z, just go read about them, because everything in this planet and ecosystem is also dependable on the fungi. So learning about the world's largest living being, which is an organ, which is a mushroom, and other things like that, just understanding more of the world we live in and how the fungi is involved. So I highly recommend that as well.
Great. Thanks again, Tero. My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer, your co-host, and you are listening to the Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. If you like what you've heard today, please share this with your friends and family and encourage them to subscribe on iTunes. You can sign up for our weekly newsletter and download our ebooks by clicking the links provided in the show notes on iTunes. And as my oldest son says, be awesome and never unawesome.